interview is going to blow your mind. We have an expert here who has been raising the alarm over a property tax scandal that is impacting many areas, many counties across America, where it seems as if the county authorities are not honestly evaluating the properties, but rather they're at first determining how much budget they want to spend. And then they're taking that number and then just dividing that up among all the properties and setting the property tax rates according to how much money they want. At least that's my understanding of it. But the expert here that's going to tell us all about this is Mitch Vexler. He's from Mockingbird Properties, and he's been researching this in great detail and blowing the whistle on it. So welcome, Mitch, to the program today. It's great to have you on, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm thrilled.
I'm glad to have you here. And so I gave a little intro there to my understanding of this, which is very superficial, but could you give us the story of what's actually happening, how you found out about this, and what are the implications?
Well, with regard to who I am, just as a little bit of background there. So I'm a 35-year builder developer, originally out of Canada. I happen to have a background in statistical probability and quantitative finance. I've built as high as 35 floors. I've built subdivisions, multifamily. They're pretty well as in anything we haven't done. And that's kind of the short version of it. The issue of what we found in 2016 was through Denton Central Appraisal District. They were monkeying even then with the values. So when I would walk in with a income statement and a pro forma, they tried on the spot to say, no, that's not your real income, and this is what it's going to be. And that particular person was acting as if he was a used car salesman. So he had to keep going back and forth to the back office to try and negotiate a value. Well, you're not allowed to negotiate a value that is outside the confines of law. So in 2016, I walked away and there was no lawsuit. We settled on the spot. That was okay.
And which state is this in, please?
This is in Texas. It's
okay.
Denton Central Appraisal District in Texas.
Okay.
And in 2017, they tried to bump it up again, another several $100,000. And then all of a sudden we realized what we had stepped into. I have an accountant, Leslie, so we started hammering in on what the requirements were so that we could prepare ourselves to go to the appraisal review board. That's the ARB. And we did so, and they ignored us. We sued, and they lost. Well, that same process has happened since 2017, virtually every year, nonstop. And we're about to, this year, 2024, unleash a barrage of lawsuits on multiple ARB boards, be it the individuals joint and severally liable, for RPAs. Those are the people that represent the CAD in the ARB hearing, for perjury. We again will sue, which we've already done, the chief appraiser, joint and severally liable. And these frauds are being committed on a mass scale.
Now explain the nature of the fraud that you are alleging is taking place. Like, and by the way, our audience is very sympathetic to what you're saying here because, and I live in Texas, we are all getting hit with seemingly insane property tax valuations that are going up every year beyond anything that seems rooted in reality. So I am seeing what you're talking about, but please lay it out. How does the fraud work?
So we have what's called Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. That's USPAP. USPAP is a document. It's a private organization. The Appraisal Foundation created it. And it has been in existence for really since the late 1920s. The problem is that USPAP is completely ignored. And inside of USPAP are all the quantifications such that whatever determined value is arrived at must be based in math. In other words, you have to use the actual values. You have to use the actual income. You have to use the actual expenses, none of which they're doing because the key word that you said in the beginning, yes, this is a predetermined budget. And the predetermined budgets are handed to the Central Appraisal District by the taxing entities. So in Denton Central Appraisal District, there's 67 taxing entities, including schools. Well, they all come up individually with a predetermined budget. They hand that number to the chief appraiser. Chief appraiser says, okay, my job is to go and get this money. Wow. That has absolutely nothing to do with USPAP in and of itself.
Wait, however, so that person is saying, I have to find a way to extract this much money from property owners, regardless of what the valuation rationally would be. I'm just going to find a way to spread this across all the taxable entities, correct?
Yes, but it's much deeper than that. So the state comptroller gets into the act, and the state comptroller has what's called a property valuation study, does the exact same thing. Well, I need this money from this area here to go and move money from this school district to that school district. And in that process, does the exact same thing to the chief appraiser. Here's my budget, hit it. Well, you now have 2 layers of fraud, but it gets worse. So under the state property tax code, Texas property tax code, USPAP is required. And then 2301E and 2301B of the state property tax code also has other requirements. Well, then we take it up one step. And that step would be that the state constitution, Texas state constitution, requires something called uniform and equal. USPAP is ignored. Texas property tax code is ignored. State constitution under uniform and equal is ignored. And the combination of those is a violation of the US Constitution under the 1st, 5th, 14th, and 16th Amendments. So it's the absolute trifecta of completely ignoring the laws. And to that point, there's actually federal law that says if an agency of the government is unlawful, that agency must be enjoined. Enjoined is a fancy word for shut down. Well, it turns out that this problem is not Denton Central Appraisal District specific. Its ramifications are across the United States. There's attorneys working on this in Florida. I spent several hours with them, and the laws are, I would say, within 98% accurate of each other. Some of the terminology is different, but then we have people that have reached out from California, and turns out that they have what's called the Board of Equalization. Well, it's the exact same process. The laws are within 98%. The bottom line is that the taxpayers, the real estate taxpayers, and we have all the math on our website to back up everything that's coming out of my mouth, but the reality is that 37% of the households being defined as multifamily and or single family households in any given jurisdiction, simply dependent on the size of the population, are in harm's way of going bankrupt or losing the roof over their head as a direct result of the overvaluation and overtaxation at the hands of these central appraisal districts.
Yes, you just hit something really important. In essence, this is leading towards mass homelessness of the American people. And remember when, I'm sure you followed when Kamala was proposing a tax on unrealized gains, unrealized capital gains, and everybody went ballistic. That would be taxing, unrealized gains on stocks and gold and Bitcoin and everything else. Well, isn't property tax, as you're describing it here, isn't this essentially an escalating tax on an unrealized gain that then forces many people to have to sell their farms or sell their homes in order to pay the tax? They have to essentially give up the property and live elsewhere or maybe be homeless. Does that sound about right?
That's 100% accurate, but it's deeper. So pay your tax or we'll take the house. Congratulations, you just violated RICO. Go straight to jail. There's no sugarcoating any of this. And that's exactly where this ends up. So,
whoa. So you're talking about RICO Act violations, conspiracy charges against these individuals who are involved in this.
Absolutely. And that is exactly the buttons we're starting to push. Wow. That is exactly why we're about to unleash a barrage of lawsuits, because the math is the math and they can't get away from it. The law is the law. We have the facts, we have the law, we have the math, we've got it all. All they have is, well, we were told, we're just doing what we were told to do. And that is a statement by Chris Luttrell from Denton Central Appraisal District. So my response to Mr. Luttrell was, well, Mr. Luttrell, if you were taught to commit murder, does that make it legal?
Nope.
Of course not. But the bottom line is, we have the evidence that communities have been targeted via the property valuation studies through the state comptroller. Sanger, Pilot Point, Aubrey, a subdivision that I built in Copper Canyon, targeted. How do we know they're targeted? Because the values of those properties inside of those subdivisions went up 48 to 65% over and above what the average in Denton Central Appraisal District and throughout the Denton Central Appraisal District at 24% for 2024. That is targeting. Pay the taxes or we'll take your house.
Yes.
That falls under state RICO and it falls under federal RICO.
So this sounds really important. Let me give out your website, mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD, DCAD. That's how you get to your page of links, videos, and the evidence and the signature gathering, lawsuit details, all of that. It's on your website, mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD. Now, let me ask you, Mitch, I'm sure there are a lot of people who feel like they have been targeted and ripped off by counties in their property valuation. What can people do to either A, help support your legal efforts, or B, initiate their own legal efforts in other counties across America if they feel like they've been targeted in the same way?
Okay, so a couple of issues. First of all, Travis Spencer at Real Estate Mindset has put together a course. It's free, and it walks people through how to create true comparisons so that you can stand in front of your own ARB panel and say, no, these are my comparisons. You, this ARB, or you, the Central Appraisal District, do not, in law, have the unilateral right to pick my comparisons. This gives those homeowners, in a very calm, cool, collective manner, the ability to tackle this issue without any attorneys, go to the ARB. If the ARB turns you down and says, no, we don't care, well, you've now collected the evidence to hand off to an attorney. However, with that said, attorneys are expensive. So the way to tackle it is to go and find other people in your neighborhood that have the similar problem. Now you can spread the load of the attorney's fees across multiple people, and now it's justifiable. So,
but how do you even find an attorney who has knowledge in this area?
There's a huge problem here in that question. What we have found, bear in mind, I'm getting lawsuits coming at me by the day from across the United States. And there is a problem with lack of knowledge, believe it or not, on the part of the attorneys. There's a packaging problem. It's not that they don't understand the law, they do. What they don't understand is USPAP and the math under the hood and what the requirements are. So they're preparing lawsuits and fighting battles with, in essence, 60% of their hands tied behind their back. And it's a packaging problem. We've received information from indigenous people and sovereign people. And again, it's a packaging problem. They're right on the laws, but the laws are 300 years old, and a current judge can't relate to something that far in the past. So their information, their history, it would be great to turn that into an exhibit, but you've got to hit these judges straight up front on current law and on current math. USPAP is a requirement. You violated all these codes. And by the way, on my website is a 10-page document called violations.pdf. That's 10 pages of laws that have been broken, including federal laws. Wow. So it doesn't get into the RICO. It just touches on the most current, what everybody is facing. And when I say everybody, every single real estate property taxpayer and owner. Doesn't matter whether you're commercial. It doesn't matter if you're a multifamily tenant. You're paying real estate tax. You may not know it. This touches everybody.
Now, Mitch,
so inside of that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead and complete your thought, and then I have a question.
So inside of that 10 pages of those violations, you can literally go down the list. Over and above that, what you've seen on my landing page at mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD, there's another link about 3/4 of the way down that says access to case studies. Well, that is designed for attorneys and accountants, and we will give them that code for free. We're giving everything we've got because of the size and scope of this problem.
Okay.
For those attorneys that want to file the lawsuits, we've done the work for you. We've done the math for you.
Wow.
We've quantified literally every jurisdiction. We've gone in the state of Texas. We've gone through multiple jurisdictions to show people how this is affecting those particular jurisdictions. And you'll see values up between 28% as high as 170% over and above the median household value, what it's supposed to be. So all that's done. All you would have to do is take our system, substitute in your numbers based on the median household income and based on the population, and boom, up comes your evidence. All right. That's available.
Mitch, let me ask you this question. I mean, that's an amazing resource. We showed the screen there for people to check it out themselves. But let me add this. The criminal side of this, what you mentioned, RICO, conspiracy charges, charges of government abuse and fraud. In order for such charges to be leveled against individuals carrying this out, you need to have, as you well know, I'm just saying this for the audience's sake, you need to have a controlling legal authority such as a DA who's willing to level these charges, or the Texas AG, Ken Paxton. In my experience, local county DAs are not willing to rock the boat like this that could potentially threaten the revenue for the county. Most of those county DAs are going to say, nope, I will not press charges. And Ken Paxton is rather busy fighting, censorship and a lot of things happening on a national level and many other things. I don't think there's a lot of willingness there. What are you hearing in terms of county DAs or maybe Paxton's office about any willingness to prosecute people over this?
Recently, we haven't heard from Ken Paxton's office. About a month ago, we heard that the case wasn't ready for him yet, quote unquote, whatever that means.
Okay.
However, in the meantime, we have phone calls coming in from detectives. We have phone calls coming in from DAs asking for information. How does all this tie together? How does this work? So we also have a sheriff, a fellow that's running for sheriff in Brazoria County. His entire tagline is investigate the CADs. And this isn't just Texas. This stuff is coming in literally every 5 minutes or something else coming in across the United States.
This is a national scandal.
Yeah, it's picking up steam in Canada because Canada even has USPAP, except that in front of it is a letter C, as in Canada USPAP. So it's picking up steam everywhere because the truth of the matter is you either get in front of this. This is a multi-trillion-dollar problem. So to those DAs that want to sit on their butt and not get involved, you've got two choices here. You can do that, but that trillion-dollar problem will keep growing because of something called the rule of 72. So right now, what we know in Denton alone, there's $95 billion worth of bonds outstanding. I was finally able to tabulate that about a week ago with the help, by the way, of the BRB. So that's the board review board for bonds. Very nice. They were helpful. They hid nothing from me. They only gave me what they had, and that was great. But I was finally able to figure it out.
Oh, I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going. These bonds are issued based on the anticipated revenue. And
it's all garbage.
Right, which means the bonds are going to be degraded.
Yes, sir.
Or defaulted.
100%. They're going to default if you don't get in front of this and unwind it.
Wow.
It's an exaggeration. This is a multi-trillion-dollar problem. You either get involved and unwind it, or the market will get in front of you. The market will unwind it.
You're right.
At which point you will have a depression greater than the original depression.
As soon as a bunch of sharks in Wall Street really figure this out, they're going to start shorting those bonds, and they're going to deplete the entire bond market that's based on this fraud. You're exactly right. Wow. I mean, this kind of reminds me of the 2008 subprime mortgage collapse and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and that was a massive scam, and collateralized debt obligations, CDOs, the whole thing tumbled down. And what? Goldman Sachs was affected, Bank of America, and
this is worse. This is worse.
This is worse. Tell us about that.
Well, the 2008
Lehman Brothers,
yeah.
Right?
Right. So in 2008, the credit default swaps ended up in the toilet called Deutsche Bank. So Deutsche Bank is still sitting on trillions worth of that crap. There's no other way to describe it. Now, is there some value there? Sure. But the problem is it still hasn't been unwound. Now, due to the rule of 72, if you take that problem, look at how many years we are here later. And all of a sudden, the rule of 72 says every 6 to 7 years, just based on the interest rate, that debt is going to double.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think these central appraisal districts and these taxing entities have their hand out? In Fort Worth, literally 3 weeks ago, the Fort Worth appraisal district said we're going to freeze the taxes. 2 weeks ago, en masse, like jets on a runway, the school districts showed up and said, oh no, you can't freeze the taxes. You have to increase them in perpetuity or we're bankrupt. At which point I chimed in and said, no, you idiots, you are bankrupt today. All you have to do is look at the rule of 72. That money doesn't exist. And by the way, they're not paying off those bonds. They're rolling out the bonds and they're rolling up the interest rates.
Wait, are you saying that some of these interest rates are 12%?
I'm saying what we've seen as high as 10.2%. Yes, sir.
Okay, so 7 years. 7 years doubling of the debt, right?
Yeah.
So that's insane. That's going to spiral into financial oblivion rapidly.
That's where we are. And that's why I keep saying this either gets unwound quickly. And there's value in these things, but until you start to unwind it, the ramifications are if you don't, and the market wakes up one day, it'll literally be a 24-hour bloodbath and things won't be worth anything.
Right.
Because the currency is being devalued as a direct result of this. People aren't buying the bonds. The foreign people right now today aren't buying the bonds. They can see what's coming. They may not know it at the school district level or at the central appraisal district level. But the reality is we've studied LISD, Louisville Independent School Districts. We've looked at their balance sheet. They don't have any notes on their balance sheet describing the bonds. That's why I called the BRB. And I said, what the heck is going on here? And they said, well, yeah, under Texas law, that's actually a violation under Chapter 45 of the Teachers Education Act. So the simple fact that they can't even state where the math is, and there's all sorts of problems at these school districts. You got contracts. The school districts are just a giant sieve for money disappearing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And hardly engaged in education either, more like indoctrination for the most part. Okay, so this is really fascinating. I'm really glad that we have you on today because now I'm just starting to realize how big this is. But let me ask you a little bit of a different question. I know this is not your focus, but I need to ask you, a lot of people say that property taxes are all unconstitutional to begin with, because how do you even own property? You don't have ownership if the government can come take it away when you're not paying them essentially some form of rent that they determine, they decide, which is kind of what you're describing right now. But I know this isn't your challenge. You're not saying that all property taxes should end. You're just saying they should be valued mathematically correctly. Or what are you saying?
No, property taxes have to be eliminated in favor of a uniform state's sales tax, which wipes out so much fat. We literally proved it a few days ago that if you do, as I'm saying, just in Denton County alone, you will save over $7 billion by wiping out the fat. Simply just get rid of all the fat. The central appraisal districts are gone. Any of these monkeying around with the numbers, it's all gone. And by the way, under the 16th Amendment, because I actually wrote an amicus brief having to do with this issue, under the 16th Amendment, it clearly says you cannot have a tax on unrealized gains, that all taxes must be based on income if you're going to have one.
Exactly.
And therein lies the problem. So I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe we're headed to the Supreme Court. If the state of Texas keeps punting this case, we're not going away. We've already made, we're filing more lawsuits. This is going to get ramped up. And I'm sorry if people get hurt. I'm sorry if people end up going bankrupt over this. But the bottom line is you're going to get what's coming your way. If you're going to act like a criminal, you deserve to be treated like a criminal. I would prefer that this stay in the state of Texas. I would prefer that this gets unwound. But I'm here for mom and pop. I've seen this before. I left the country over this. I left Canada, which is where I'm from, over this. I'm not leaving Texas. We know what we have. We're fully quantifiable. We know what the laws are. Over and above that, I have asked in almost every presentation I've given, if I'm wrong, show me. I'm happy to apologize. I'll remove the document from the website. I'll say I'm sorry. Your problem will be I got 1,100 documents in behind it.
Right. Well, it it seems self-evident that property taxes are unconstitutional and immoral. I would add they are immoral as well. If anybody's paying attention to morality these days, they're immoral because you've got people that retired living on a farm. They produced, they paid taxes their whole lives, and now they just want to retire on a farm. And then the state comes along and says, no, you have to pay now 30% more every year in some areas, or sell your farm, forces them to sell, forces them to give up what they earned. Go ahead, your comments.
I have a phrase that I came up with, which is called equity stripping. So to your point, here's the problem. It's not the money that's being taken today, okay? What this is, you've had multiple years, at least since 2016, of pulling money away from people by virtue of RICO. You're saying, give me the money or I'm going to take your house. Okay. So let's say from 2016 to today, that's multiple years of overpaying the tax by virtue of the overvaluation, which is fraudulent. Okay, good. Now, here's the big problem. The simple fact that you don't own that land, that's called being a lessor, a ground lessor. So we don't even have the definition such as exists in British law, which is a lot of where all this stuff came from and what ramification of the War of 1812. There is no such thing that the state of Texas owns the land under your feet. This entire social construct is a con. It doesn't exist in law. So if you think about it, you would have an amortization schedule. Everybody does if you have a mortgage. Well, at the end of 30 years, you would own that asset.
Right.
Under their math, by taking that valuation and taxation today, you cannot make 10 cents on that asset. Now, their comment will be, well, everybody has to have a place to live. Yeah, that statement is true, but if you make an investment, this cycle is so bad and so perverse. Like, I'm not building right now because of this. I have clarity. I understand what I'm looking at. But for a guy who says, okay, I'm going to go put up this house today, and I'm going to have to pay a tax. This is a spec home. And what are you going to do if that guy has to sit on that home 2 years? His profit is gone.
Right.
If you're a young person, say, I'm going to buy a house, and in 5 or 8 years from now, I'm going to move because I'll have some profit. No, you won't, because they have the ability to overtax and overvalue. Now, that's a relative ability based on their deemed power by violating the law. That's a different issue, but that's where we sit today. And that proves that this is completely corrupt. It is completely bankrupt, and it cannot happen because it's equity stripping mom and pop.
That's a really great term, equity stripping. And I think you're exactly right. It is an insidious, calculated, stretched out confiscation of the assets of the people, which centralizes money and power into the hands of the government that rules over the people with force. And if you don't believe me, just stop paying your property taxes and you'll find out what force is. But here's the question. I love the fact that you're saying end property taxes across, in this case, the state of Texas, but beyond that.
Oh, everywhere.
Yes. And replace it with a state sales tax. Now, the libertarian side of me understands that's great because it taxes consumption. So it's automatically a higher tax effectively on wealthier people who choose to spend more money, but it also puts control of taxation into the hands of the consumer. They can choose to pay lower taxes by spending less, which is great. So there's freedom in that. What level of, Texas doesn't currently have a state income tax, but there are sales taxes in certain areas. Any idea what level of state sales tax would replace property taxes?
It's taken me roughly 40 days to be able to answer that question.
I would imagine.
Got involved in this. I finally figured it out 2 days ago. The answer is 15.64%.
Wow. Okay. I would gladly give up, end all property taxes. I would gladly pay 15.64% at retail.
Yeah. And that may change just a hair, not very much, based on the population for any given state. And that's why I'm calling it a uniform states sales tax. So it has to do with population and how much money is being spent in a given, but the numbers are the numbers. You can slide in any one of these numbers and you're going to be pretty close to that number.
And of course, the bigger problem is that every state, especially California in particular, and Illinois, let's not even talk about the finances of Illinois, right? But every state has this unending appetite for more money, more power, more control. It never ends until you make it end. Like the people have to say, no, this is a limit. And that's what you're doing, it sounds like, Mitch. You're saying, no, this is illegal, what the state is, or what the county is doing.
There's 143 million single family homeowners in the United States. I can assure you the government has zero power. It's an illusion, right? If 143 million homeowners simply said, you know something, we don't want to fire any bullets. We don't want to get involved in that nonsense. That's kind of messy. We're just going to go on strike until you idiots learn how to play nice in the sandbox. At which point you will collapse the market within hours. And my point is the market is going to collapse if this problem is not dealt with. It's just the way that it is. People will tell you in the government, well, we're going to spend more money to get us out of this mess. No, that's hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is a tax. Hyperinflation and a tax will lead to an implicit destruction of the US dollar. It will be game over one way or the other. The only thing you can do is take the less painful route and simply say, we are going to unwind this. That's a corporate term for we got a problem. Not everybody is going to get their money back. But I want everybody that's listening to this to understand something. Your 401ks are at risk. Your pensions, i.e. Chicago, Illinois, are at extreme risk because there is no money to pay it back.
Right.
So if you unwind it and say, fine, it's 30 cents on the dollar, well, 30 cents on the dollar is a heck of a lot better than 5 cents on the dollar or hyperinflation. Hyperinflation devalues the currency, at which point in time we have a greater depression.
And people are already seeing the results of devaluation if they understand what's happening, grocery prices in particular, insurance prices, right? But to your point, I think it's critical that people understand what's at stake here. Isn't it very likely that the federal government will print money to bail out state and city bonds? And that...
No,
right?
Not in Texas, because the federal government can't stand the state of Texas.
Well, you're right. Yeah, you're right. But I'm talking about like California or Illinois.
Well, okay, Illinois is so bankrupt, there's no math on this planet to fix that.
That's true.
Just simply bulldoze it and start over, because there isn't anything else you can do. California being this largest economic engine, but the taxes are so great, that's one of the reasons why Texas has got the population growth that it's got. However, all these things come at a cost. And when the pensioners pension holders are mom and pop. 401ks are mom and pop. So they give their money to somebody like Fidelity to go and invest. And Fidelity says, okay, we'll buy a certain amount of muni bonds. We'll buy a certain amount of school bonds. And they give the money to Morgan Stanley. They do the same thing. So it gets cut a whole bunch of different ways. Here's the problem. The school districts are bankrupt. The municipalities are bankrupt, right? But for the implicit, and I'm underlining that word implicit, guarantee of the taxpayers, because there's no such thing. No taxpayer signed up for this crap. But for the implicit guarantee, these school bonds would be worth toilet paper in about an hour from now.
That's right.
They are depending on that implicit guarantee. The problem with the implicit guarantee is it turns out into an implicit guarantee of the taxpayers when the U.S. government on the federal side defaults in the form of its currency.
Wow. And that default is being accelerated by geopolitical events on the global scale, such as the BRICS rollout. There's a big meeting this month, in fact, among the BRICS nations, and more nations are going to dump the dollar, which means the ability of the U.S. to print meaningful dollars that have value is going to be sharply diminished. So this problem snowballs.
100%. And that's why I'm saying get in front of it before the market does.
But our political leaders, they excel at not getting in front of problems. All they want to do is kick it down the road. That's all they want to do for the next election, right?
Well, that's fine, but that would make you, see, under federal law and state law, when you're told that you're breaking the law and you choose to do nothing about it, you're a co-conspirator in a criminal conspiracy to defraud.
Right. Right. Well, maybe some of these people need to go to jail. I mean, I think there's broad support for that among the American people at this point.
I think in order to turn the tide, that has to happen. I can tell you truthfully that there are criminal complaints sitting on my attorney's desk.
Okay. Outstanding. Well, you know, there's almost nobody who went to jail after the subprime mortgage collapse and all the economic damage that caused. I think they sent one guy to jail for illegal trading or something, but nobody in the big banks went to jail.
This is so much bigger. I mean, but people don't understand this. What you saw in 2008, 2009 is a walk in the park. This makes Bernie Madoff look like a piker.
Yeah.
That's how big this is.
Yep. Bernie Madoff is small time compared to our world today. You know, he wasn't big enough. All right. So this is amazing. It seems like you need a documentary that just where you are interviewed. If you don't mind me just brainstorming out loud here, a documentary of you being interviewed and then edited together with some proper, voiceovers and some music to really lay this out to the American people. I have a team of editors. They'd be happy to put something like that together if we can arrange some video footage. But I feel like we need a simple way to explain this to people who don't follow all the math. Because this can get complex in the numbers.
It's complex. It's deep. It's perverse. It's illegal, and that's absolutely clear. And it's not an exaggeration when I say we have a mountain of evidence fully available, locked, loaded, ready to go. Our problem has been, just like you said, with the DA's not wanting to, the original judge in this case punted. She didn't want this thing in her courtroom because it's a political football. But her decision was made before I even sat down in that chair. And that became clear. So now we're at the Fort Worth Court of Appeals. It will be pushed back to that court. We're going to have to keep doing this dog and pony show. And if they keep punting, the next step will not be in federal court. It'll be straight to the U.S. Supreme Court, because that would be, if they punt, that proves that the state of Texas has violated its own constitution.
Wow.
1, 2, Supreme Court.
All right, Mitch, here's a question for you. Could you come to the Austin area? We're in a rural county just east of Austin, in Cedar Creek, our studio right here. If you have any plans to come this way, we could get you in the studio, we could film you, and we could put together a little documentary to help spread the word about this. You have any interest in that?
Yes, very, because I'm literally sitting on my right-hand side here. There's about a foot of documents, and that is the tip. I mean, that's insignificant as to what, compared to what we've got on the website. Those are my talking points, just so, because it's so deep. I go through that stack every day to keep my head in circle.
Yeah.
Remember everything that's going on.
Right. All right. Well, we'll talk to you after the show to see about your travel plans, see if we can get you into our studio here and help amplify this. Also, there needs to be, what do you call this? What's the term or the phrase of what this is?
Well, to me, this is truly equity stripping mom and pop on a global scale. I mean, the math is the math. They can't get away from it. I've asked every time a video or something appears, prove me wrong. Show me where I'm wrong. Give me the math and show me where I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty bold statement, but nobody's been able to do it.
And you were on with Robert Barnes, the attorney.
Robert Barnes poked at this, and I'm so thrilled he was on that video because he couldn't break it. Yeah. And if anybody could, it would have been him.
That's right. Robert Barnes is sharp, and he knows what's going on, and he couldn't find a hole in this, huh?
No.
Well, you're onto something big.
We have tracked the math to the law, so it's USPAP, to the math, to the state constitution, to the state property tax code, to the U.S. Constitution. We've tracked it all. We've got it documented. It's a box they can't get out of. Wow. So now it's just a question of, can you get an honest judge, huh? Or an honest DA? Yes, but there's so many people now taking a step forward across the United States. We even have attorneys that have filed suits on this issue in their states. They're starting to backpedal and say, okay, wait a minute. Vexer's right. We got this wrong. We packaged it wrong because they didn't have the math. They didn't understand USPAP. I spoke to an attorney just yesterday out of Alaska. He owns the real estate. He didn't know anything about USPAP.
Wow.
So it's like going into a fight with one of your hands tied behind your back. It's packaging. And we've done the packaging. We've done the research. We've done the math. It's all there. It's free.
Okay. Our studio resources are open to you. We'd love to get you here to do a more formal mini documentary on this that we'll do all the editing and everything to put it together for you to help explain this. And it sounds like what you have here is an absolute game changer, because all they can do is delay the application of the law. I mean, they can just throw things in your way, but they can't stop the inevitable conclusion, it sounds like.
One way or the other. Either we do this the way I am suggesting, which is to unwind it, or the market will do the unwinding, at which point all hell will break loose, because its ultimate conclusion is its ultimate conclusion, which is its failure due to abject fraud.
Wow. And how, just in the state of Texas, how many tens of billions of dollars are at play in all of this, or more? Any estimates?
1 trillion, a little over 1 trillion per year.
Just in Texas?
Yeah.
$1 trillion?
Yeah.
You're talking about municipal bonds and school bonds?
Yeah. So watch this. So in Denton Central Appraisal District, okay, the average annual property valuations are $235 billion, of which $67 billion is calculable over valuation, which means since 2017, they have stolen $1.34 billion from mom and pop.
In one county?
Just in Denton Central Appraisal District alone.
Wow.
Yes. So then when you start ratcheting that up and say, okay, that's 67 billion in Denton, you can see how fast these numbers get large. Well, the problem becomes not just what happened since 2016. I used 2017 on purpose. That's when we started to track it for real. We couldn't get the actual certified rules in 2016. We did in 2017. But due to the rule of 72, never mind what's happened from 2017 till today, look at where we will be in 5 years from now. So if you think they're equity stripping now, the ultimate question is, where's that money going to come from in 5 years?
Right.
When the amount of interest that has to be paid, never mind debt reduction, when the amount of interest that has to be paid doubles up.
I mean, they're pushing the American homeowners into a revolt if this continues.
At which point in time, we simply say, as the homeowners, you know something? We're on strike until you idiots learn how to play nice in the sandbox. When you learn how to play nice, we'll talk to you.
Wow. Wow. Mass confiscation. That's exactly what it is.
This is RICO raised to the power of 9.
Now, by the way, the state of Texas, its revenues include energy taxes, by the way, a lot of taxes on energy extraction that helps fund the state. I know other states like Wyoming do the same thing. And many of these states, I think you could also argue that if they would stop the waste, fraud, and bloat in the government itself and in the school districts, they might not need much in the way of property taxes above and beyond like energy taxes for some states. It seems like we're living in states that are just massive fraud.
So to your point, Senator Betancourt is the problem. Now, Senator Betancourt makes his living here in the state of Texas as a real estate tax consultant, and he makes a good living. He has zero interest in solving this problem. Well, there's others that would rather bury their head in the sand, or they don't have the intellect necessary to understand the math. Either way, the Senate Finance Committee a few weeks ago came out with a report, and I asked who paid for the report, and why did Senator Betancourt use that report to state that the sales taxes would have to go up 26%, but for trying to make people afraid of something they don't even understand. Senator Betancourt, I challenged him, and I challenged the Texas State Finance Committee. I said, there's 31 of you members. I will be happy to appear. I will stay as long as you want. You give me a minimum of an hour, and I will lay this case out. And past that, I'll stay as long as you want. I'll answer any questions you want. I'll give you any evidence you want. All we have heard is crickets.
Yeah.
I offered the same thing to 15 people. I said, Mr. Hagar, that's the state comptroller, pick 15 people. Pick as many attorneys as you want, pick as many accountants as you want. I'm fine. Whatever you want, I'll buy the cappuccinos. No problem. Let's have a debate. You on your side, you take your position, I'll take mine. Did the same thing with Denton Central Appraisal District, chief appraiser. And pick anybody you want, the best 15 orators, perfectly fine, happy to do it. I believe in the First Amendment to the US Constitution. Say your piece. So far, out of all three, crickets. Wow. Then we have Mr. Barnes trying to poke a hole in this, and he can't. Well, the reason why you have crickets is because they know that in combination, everything that we're doing is right, and the math is true. And their own documents, by the way, we have this on tape. We have Don Spencer on tape stating to the board of directors of the Denton Central Appraisal District, we took 60,000 properties outside of the database, manipulated them, his words, in Excel, and put them back. Well, that statement opened up Pandora's box for a guy like me. Right? Because I have something called an infection rate spreadsheet. I ran that math. That math proved that their database at Denton Central Appraisal District is 76% corrupt because the comparisons that they were using are in fact not comparisons.
Wow.
Okay? So Denton Central Appraisal District is the gift that keeps on giving. And
it reminds me of election fraud here too. It's like they're retroactively altering the property values to match what they want. The money, yes. How much money they want.
Yes, and the simple fact that there's a predetermined budget is illegal because it literally has nothing to do with valuation of property.
That's right.
Nothing.
Right.
And that's the problem.
And there's no government department that wants to be smaller.
Well, okay, and to your point, here we go. You open the box, here we go.
Okay.
International Association of Assessing Officers was hired, and the membership of IAAO, so Denton Central Appraisal District is a member of IAAO. IAAO was hired to give Don Spencer cover to increase the amount of employees to help deal with the overvaluation of fraud that they're committing. How do you like that one?
Of course. Bigger government will solve the problems caused by bigger government.
Yeah, so IAAO, they're so dumb, they literally made themselves a co-conspirator.
Wow. And they're probably just trying to figure out how to retroactively paper over this whole problem right now, huh?
Yes, which they can't. They're not getting out of this box. The evidence is the evidence. We want it in a courtroom. All this evidence will come out. All this evidence, I mean, Lord knows wherever it is across the United States at this point, because we're just pushing it out as far as we can. But the bottom line is nobody, regardless of the state, has been able to beat this up. I mean, there's attorneys in Florida that are working on this. I spent hours with them. There's now an attorney in Alaska. We've got one signature from at least 48 different states.
So let me ask you a different question. And I know we're getting close to the hour here, and I greatly appreciate your time, but why, Mitch? Why are you doing this interview? What are you hoping to gain by talking to the public about this?
I left the country over this, and yes, I have a chip on my shoulder being forced to leave a country that I didn't really want to leave. But the truth of the matter is, I made more money the year I left than everybody on my block combined. But I didn't have any money. See, that's socialism. That's what socialism does. Socialism strips equity. And at the end of socialism, revolutions happen. The War of 1812 was literally fought over this issue of taxation on land. What was about to become the Americas and the American colonies said, yeah, we're not going to pay the British money on a ground lease. Well, what do we have right here in Texas right now? You are paying money on a ground lease. So the answer to your question, A equals B and B equals C, therefore A must equal C. I'm trying to stop the revolution or the war in favor of, let's be gentlemen about this, let's recognize the problem, and let's unwind this. Because if you don't, this will self-destruct. That's what the math says. There is no money in 5 years from now to pay the interest cost based on the rule of 72, never mind the debt reduction. They can say we're going to print our way out of this, except that's a one-way ticket straight into hell. It'll unwind even faster.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are some people in power that want chaos. They want hell. They want a financial reset. They want a crisis so big, and then they'll claim, well, there's nothing we could have done to stop it. And now we're just going to have to issue a new currency. And yeah, you lose 99% of all your value, but hey, it's the Russians' fault or whatever. You know how this works.
When you're told you're breaking the law and you choose to do nothing about it, you have violated your oath of office in the state of Texas, which at a minimum is a third-degree felony. You've also violated federal law. So anybody that thinks they're going to walk away from this unscathed and take that type of callous attitude on the backs of the American taxpayer is going to be horribly mistaken.
Yeah. Well said. And I also think implicitly you just made the case for gold and silver at the same time in all of this because of where things are going.
Gold, silver, hard assets.
Yeah.
Hard assets. Like I said, I'm not building right now because of this, because I know if I put a shovel on the ground, I can't see clear 2 years into the future, let alone 4 or 5 years. And the math is such that what we have here is a cash grab.
Yeah.
Well, why do I want to put a shovel on the ground and open myself up to extortion?
No kidding.
Especially given what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd be targeted. All right. Well, Mitch, let me give out your website again. It's mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD, correct? DCAD?
Yes, /DCAD.
Okay, DCAD. And that's this treasure trove of documents and links and letters and links to interviews and podcasts and everything else. This is extraordinary, Mitch. Please keep in touch with us. And again, the offer is open to you. If you want to come to the Austin area, we'll do a documentary with you, a mini documentary, and get this out to explain to people. And look, I want to say for the record, I'm a Texan. I love what Texas stands for. I'm an American. I love what America stands for. But I support the people of Texas, the people of America. And when the people are being financially raped and pillaged by their own rogue government, that's when we have to peacefully and firmly and legally put a stop to that. That's what we're doing here. That's what it sounds like. That's what you're doing. You agree with that philosophy?
100%. I want this done peacefully, but I know what's coming. Right?
Okay.
I mean,
and you're trying to avert.
You see the math, it's frightening.
You're trying to avert mass panic and chaos and uprisings.
We're getting real close because you've got people now. I mean, when you see what happened in North Carolina, the banks aren't there. That creates bank runs. Yeah. Right? It becomes mass panic. Don't do that. Just let's unwind this like gentlemen and let's move on.
Yeah, better to have a little bit of pain now financially than a whole lot of pain later. But when you say let's unwind this, I just keep thinking of the way bureaucrats work. They will never voluntarily unwind any of their fraud.
And whatever they get is coming their way.
Yep. It's going to be interesting.
This is a binary decision. It really is. Make up your mind.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mitch, fantastic having you on. Thank you, sir, for your effort to help educate people. We'll spread the word and keep us posted about your progress, and we'll cover it.
Perfect. I appreciate it very much. And yes, I will be headed your way shortly.
All right. We'll coordinate that with you through our producer.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Mitch. Have a great day. And folks, that was Mitch Vexler there. Again, mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD. Wow. Just wow. This is beyond the Big Short. This is the big short. This is the bigger short. This is the ginormous short. I don't know what you want to call it. Go watch that movie, The Big Short. By the way, it's worth watching right now because it gives you a little taste of what's coming and the depth of denial inside the financial industry. They will deny. They will incorrectly rate assets to the very last minute when they can't escape any longer. And then the whole damn system comes tumbling down and trillions are destroyed. That's the way Wall Street works. That's the way government works. And that's what our guest is trying to avoid that crisis. So thank you for watching today. Mike Adams here of Brighteon.com. Feel free to repost this interview on other channels and other platforms. And thank you for watching today. Take care, everybody. Now through December 2nd at the Health Ranger store, we have all of our silver-based products on sale, 15% off automatically in the shopping cart when you purchase them at healthrangerstore.com. Let me show you what we have. We've got the silver gel. This is the first aid gel in the squeeze tubes there. Everybody loves this. It's got 8 different essential oils in it. I formulated this myself. It's got 1,000 uses around the home or the ranch, or even I've donated this to first responders and guys that run on the border to try to protect our border in Texas. They use that gel. We've got silver-based deodorant, which has different forms of magnesium in it as well. It's not an aluminum formula. We don't use aluminum in our deodorants. It's silver and baking soda and magnesium. It's very natural. People love that deodorant. And we don't add, of course, any artificial fragrance or synthetic fragrance chemicals to anything. We just don't use that across any of our products, period. We've also got the silver breath spray there, which is a sprayable version that is great for getting silver, into your mouth, and for lots of different reasons that can be supportive of your overall health. Sometimes I have to search for the right words to tell you what these products can do, because of all kinds of restrictions on freedom of speech. But we have Castile liquid soap there, which has silver infused in it as well. So that's a special soap formulation, completely unscented, that has these extra special properties of colloidal silver. And then on top of that, we have colloidal silver mouthwash and gargle there on the left side of your screen. And right now, I think that's the only flavor we have in stock. Normally, we have other flavors. They are coming back into stock over time. But that's what we have available right now. And it is mixed with all kinds of oral health herbs. In fact, I want to show you this, what's in that product, because it's so really impressive. It's got iodine and zinc in it. And in addition, here are some of the ingredients. Well, here's what's not in it. No fluoride, no aspartame, no alcohol. But it has xylitol, which is anti-cavity by itself. Zinc, it's got myrrh, a biblical herb that's great for gum health. It's got black walnut hulls, stevia for a little bit of sweetener, prickly ash bark, also excellent for oral health, peppermint oil, clove oil, tea tree oil, menthol, and iodine. This makes it an amazing mouthwash. There's just nothing else in the marketplace that is like this. And nothing synthetic. It's not all sugared up. It's got really strong functional herbs in it. You don't even need a lot of this. Take a small amount, swish it around. You can even add a little bit of water to it to dilute it, and just swish it around. Your gum health, you will notice a difference within just a couple of weeks, if not sooner. But this is available 15% off, which is a rare discount. We normally don't have that kind of discount on any of these products, but we're offering this right now to say happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for all your support. These discounts on all these silver products, show my desk again. This discount applies to all these products automatically in your shopping cart. And this is good through midnight, December 2nd. So thank you for your support. Stock up on these while we can. Happy Thanksgiving. And we appreciate everything that you do to help keep us online and in business. Healthrangerstore.com is the website, and every sale helps support our platforms such as Brighteon and Natural News and Brighteon.io, Brighteon.ai, etc. So thank you for all your support. God bless you all, and God bless America.